Mobile hunters, if you're interested in upping your mobile game, then head to tetherednation.com and check out their saddle gear. There are a few things you can actually buy that will help you become a better deer hunter or give you the freedom to hunt any tree or any situation. This is the reason why I started saddle hunting in the first place and why I use Tethered's gear. I can honestly say that Tethered's saddle gear has changed how I hunt for the better. Big tree, little tree, from the ground, it doesn't matter. I'm untethered by my gear to hunt the best setup for the situation, instead of hunting for a tree that my gear can use. My current core setup consists of the Phantom saddle, tethered one sticks, and the Predator platform, along with an assortment of their accessories. So if you want to up your mobile game, head over to tetherednation.com. If you're like me, you spend lots of time poring over maps, looking at weather data, all in an effort to help predict when and where my best times to hunt will be. It'd be nice if there was a reliable source with all this information in one place. Enter the Spartan Forge app. Unlike some other predictive apps on the market, Spartan Forge was created from military combat intelligence experience tailored for hunters, and stands at the nexus of machine learning and white-tailed deer hunting. No more man-made algorithms. This is a predictive model based on real GPS-collared deer data, historical and predictive weather, and the next level of mapping imagery, all at my fingertips. I've been using the iOS app this season, and it has replaced all my other mapping tools. Visit SpartanForge.ai and sign up today, or head to your iOS or Android app store. Use the promo code TRUTH to save some money and download it today. Welcome to the Truth from a Stand Deer Hunting Podcast, brought to you by Spartan Forge. I'm your host, Clint Campbell, and you are listening to episode number 297. Today, I'm joined by Johnathan Moreland to talk about a season spent chasing a state record with a stick bow. So stay tuned. All right. What is up, everyone? Happy Wednesday to you. Hope you are doing well. Hope you are feeling fine. In the past, at least 2 days, I want to say. Yeah, the past 2 days, this past weekend. Man, the mornings and the evenings were feeling very deery. Got down into the 50s at night. The one place, actually, I was pulling some trail camera cards. We'll talk about that in a second. It actually got into the 40s. The one night, I think the high was 48 or 49, or I'm sorry, the low was 48 or 49. So that was pretty exciting. It definitely gives me that feeling that slinging arrows is not too far around the corner. But going to try to keep this up front as short as possible today. I got a lot of stuff I got to get to this afternoon. One of which being I've had my new bow for a couple weeks now. I've been shooting it. I set the sight tape whenever I first picked it up. There's always kind of that, adoption period, maybe we should say. And when I got it, I actually was working through a shoulder and a rib injury. And so I'm shooting the bow great. Shoots killer, but my sight tape is just 2 to 3 yards off that I'm noticing at long range. Whenever I'm in 20 to 30 yards, I'm fine. But whenever I'm shooting out to 50 and 60, I notice that I'm consistently shooting just a little bit high. So I'm going to head out to my buddy's shop out to Bob and AJ's, just because they have some distance that I can shoot, go out today and set up and reset my sight tape, which should just be a minor adjustment and be kind of quick. So I have that to do today. And I'm kind of jammed up for time because yesterday I spent in the North Piece pulling trail camera cards. Yesterday, spent a full day, just kind of drove up on a day trip and spent the day there hiking through the mountains, pulling trail camera cards, and have some good talent on camera. Pretty stoked about it. The one thing too that I always kind of forget about until the weather kind of starts to dip in, the temps start dropping is, man, I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but just having eating lunch in the mountain or drinking, I had my water filter system with me yesterday that I'm taking to Idaho. And as opposed to just carrying a bunch of water with me, I just stopped at a stream and got some water, doing stuff like that. Simple things like having coffee on a tailgate, taking a jet boil and having a little pour over pack and making coffee on the tailgate in the morning. It's just those little things that remind me that fall's right around the corner. I love deer hunting and chasing bucks, don't get me wrong. But there's part of me too that really kind of enjoys those small things that you kind of when it's stupid hot out that you don't really enjoy, that whenever the weather starts changing and it starts to feel like fall's around the corner, you start doing those things again. Those are the kind of signs that kind of get me jacked up in thinking about fall. But with that, the trail camera card pool was awesome. Some really good velvet on camera. So certainly have some prospects up there. We'll wait and see what happens with the shift. Last year we had some good deer around that, ended up disappearing once fall rolled around. So we'll see who stays around and who doesn't. But as of right now, I want to say 6 to 7 shooters, I would say, in a couple different places. And there's probably, probably 3, 4, maybe as many as 5 cameras that haven't even been checked yet. So there could be more than that, which I imagine that there is, because the handful of cameras that haven't been checked is because they're on another completely different piece from where I was at yesterday. And it's not a long drive, but it's a little bit of a piece, it's not a hike. You have to get in the car and drive to the spot. So I didn't get to it yesterday because I ran short on time, because it's a couple hour drive from my house and I needed to get home to do some stuff with the family. But with that, speaking of velvet, as you know that I've mentioned the past couple episodes, our buddies over at Exodus Outdoor Gear have Velvet Fest going on. When velvet starts kicking, you start pulling those camera cards. It signals for sure that things are getting ramped up and just about ready to go. So from now until August 19th, our buddies at Exodus, they'll have some killer prizes for people who use the hashtag VelvetFest on social media. And that way they can kind of track along with whatever you have going on in the Whitetail Woods. Every single camera that you order from Exodus comes with a random prize card. I've been told it includes some pretty huge deals, even including some of their all-new Exodus MMT tailored arrows. To help share in all the excitement for the upcoming season, Exodus is offering 18% off site-wide, except their new MMT arrows. Those are not included. Prize cards are included with every single camera and arrow order. Just scratch the card and you'll find some winnings in those. And also use the code SUMMERBUCKS, it's all one word, SUMMERBUCKS, at checkout to save 18%. And exclusive to podcast listeners only, so for those of you that are tuning in, they'll extend this offer to the end of the month. So don't overlook this opportunity to save some cash and get a killer trail camera at the same time. Over the last 7 years, you guys know this, my buddies at Exodus have been making quality trail cameras that just flat out work. They come with a 5-year warranty, theft and damage policy. That's literally half a decade that you're going to be covered by the 5-year warranty. No one else is doing that. But more than likely, you're not going to need it. I was checking cameras this past week that have been out for multiple years, just hanging and rocking, especially some renders that I've had in some kind of intimate spots, if you will. Those things have been hanging for several years now without doing anything more than maybe swapping out some batteries. And I also run an SP18 solar panel on that as well. They also launched, as you guys have heard me mention, the Exodus MMT arrow this summer. This arrow is a tailored arrow built to your specific specifications using nothing but the best and highest grade components. Head to their website to use the 3D builder and experience the best shooting hunting arrow available. I've been slinging those for the past, probably month and a half, and they're awesome. Super consistent, man. I mean, I've not had groups this consistent, just consistent arrow flight like this that I can ever really remember. As I'd mentioned, I need to kind of adjust my sight tape, but what helps me with that is that every arrow is kind of flying consistently, so I know that it's my sight tape and not something wonky with an arrow, or that I have a weird one in the bunch that just kind of wants to be a flyer every time I shoot it. So make sure you're checking out their site and checking out their new arrows. Also, be sure to take part in the Velvet Fest celebration and tag their social media account, because they're going to want to check out what you guys have going on this summer. So with that, we're going to go ahead and jump into today's show. Have on Johnathan Moreland. Johnathan is from Arkansas. And I came across this fella. I saw a video come across my feed in YouTube, and I was like, man, that's a giant deer. I should check this out. And ended up kind of watching the whole thing, and it's this crazy encounter that Johnathan had with this world-class buck. And he's doing it all with a stick bow, and he filmed the entire thing. It's awesome. I mean, Jonathan's just a hell of a hunter. He's one of those dudes that the moment you talk to him and start talking deer hunting, you can tell this is like it's in his blood. It's who he is. and he's damn good. He's damn good at it. He's doing it in Arkansas, which was a place that I've never been to, never hunted. I don't know that I've ever had a guest on from Arkansas either, and so it was really kind of interesting to hear and listen to his experiences hunting in Arkansas, and how that might be different from what I'm experiencing, how some of the things that we experienced, even though we're hunting very different places, how we have a lot of similarities that we've kind of experienced in different kind of pockets. So with that, we'll go ahead and jump into today's show. And as always, I want to thank you all for listening. Gang, one more thing that I forgot to mention before we jump into today's show is that I will be having Greg Godfrey on from Tethered to announce the saddle winner. We should be recording this week, so that episode, I think, should come out next week. So next week, you should learn who won the saddle giveaway. Thank you for everyone who has submitted a rating and a review and entering the giveaway. And we should be announcing that next week. And so now, without further ado, let's get to the episode, and thank you all for listening. All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. And today I have on a gentleman that I was actually scrolling around, and I don't know how I missed this video earlier and how I came to find it this, like, in the past couple weeks. But I saw this image of a hammer deer and from Arkansas. And I was like, oh, interesting. Don't see a ton of giants from Arkansas. I was like, I'll check this out. And I kind of noticed this fellow was hunting with traditional equipment, which piqued my interest even more. And then I saw the reaction after the fatal arrow was flung, and I was like, dude, I got to have this guy on, because he was jacked up, and you could tell he was just ate up with bow hunting. And I have on none other than Mr. Johnathan Moreland. What's going on, man?
Man, it's going good. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right, buddy. How's your summer been? You chomping at the bit? I know we were just talking a little bit about our plans that we have going on. So you chomping at the bit to get started?
I am. Like I say, I'm behind on the elk training that we're heading out here to do in a couple of weeks, but the deer they stay on my mind, so I'm pretty fired up about that.
Yeah. What I've found, man, is probably not telling you anything you don't know already, but going out west, it's one of those things like I can do as much as I want to do before I get there, and I always feel like the first day or two I'm still kind of sucking hind teat. It's like there's just no way to plan for those mountains unless you live in those mountains. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Especially down there in the flatland, we don't have anything to really prepare for the elevation up there. So it's or for me anyway, I'm always behind when I get out there.
Yeah. No, I hear that, man. But so the whitetail stuff, you have some good prospects this year for the upcoming year? You got some things dialed in?
Actually, I went out, I guess the first time Sunday. Actually, checked some cameras and got some decent deer on camera. Nothing just giant to get super excited about, but some good mature deer that I wouldn't mind running an arrow through out of my stick bow for sure.
Right, that's good. Yeah, right now I'm kind of so I hunt a couple different places. I hunt some stuff that's close to me, that would be local to me. When I say local, within like a 45-minute drive. And then I have some areas that I've been scouting that's a little bit further away, some like big mountain country that I've got a couple good deer up there that I know of, which I'm excited about, but nothing local to this point. I do need to do another camera check, and hopefully I've got something on there, but if not, then it looks like it'll be a lot of burning up the boot leather this year, trying to figure out where they're at, because they're not showing themselves quite yet.
Yeah. Well, if it's like down here, I don't usually get too worried about it early. I mean, a lot of times the deer I usually key in on don't even show up till September, October. So
yeah, that's last year. I've kind of seen that on these pieces that I hunt. Like the years that I have some good summer stuff, it ends up being the worst fall, where I just can't seem to locate anything, and they just all kind of transition. And then last year I didn't have much to speak of during the summer, but man, when fall rolled around, I had a lot of good deer to chase, and it was a fun fall. But like to your point, I don't think I saw the first one till probably sometime mid to late September was the first time the one that I ended up chasing showed up.
Yeah.
But I mean, before we dive into the goods, if you wouldn't mind, man, let folks know where you're from and what you do for a living. Just a little bit of background about yourself.
Yeah. So I'm from Dumas, Arkansas, which is southeast Arkansas, southeast portion of the state. I work for a company, Greenpoint Ag. We sell chemical seed and fertilizer to the farmers around. This is Delta country down here, so that's what I do for a living. pretty busy in the spring and summer months, but it does allow me to get a little free time in the fall and winter to do some hunting. So, it works out pretty good for the area.
Right.
Um,
Does working in the seed and fertilizer space, does that get you some connections with some farmers that maybe makes it a little easier for some permission?
People down here are pretty picky about their deer hunting.
Yeah.
So you basically got to kind of wherever which I hunt a lot of public also, but not exactly. It's pretty all locked down as far as private land goes around here.
Right. No, I hear you, man.
Yeah.
It's similar here in Pennsylvania. Big hunting heritage. Pretty much anyone that has some land, around, land enough to hunt, likely hunts. That's kind of the story around here. So I feel your pain there.
Yeah.
You maybe have a friend or someone's parents or something like that that it has a couple acres somewhere that you might be able to slip onto, but beyond that, it's yeah, you ain't gonna find a lot of luck with that. But how did you get started hunting, man? Was it? I mean, I'm assuming where you're from, just based on what I know of Arkansas being a hunting kind of state. I'm imagining it was probably just something that whenever you came of age, it was just something you were gonna do, and it was what it was.
Yeah, it's a pretty common thing from where I'm from. Most of my friends all grew up hunting. I was fortunate. My dad carried me and my brother every weekend from a very early age. I think I started when I was probably 7 and, killed my first deer when I was 8. And, that's just all we knew.
Right.
Got into bow hunting. I was 14 when I bought my first hunting bow. I'd always shot bows at, 3D shoots and stuff, as a kid, but bought my first hunting bow when I was 14. Killed a doe with that bow that year. And man, ever since then, it's been bow hunting ever since.
Right.
Just fell in love with it, and basically have built my life around hunting ever since then. So,
nice. What was it? I'm always curious. People get into bow hunting at different stages. So I grew up, like I mentioned, in PA, hunting heritage state. So it was kind of a birthright. Whenever I came of age to be able to go hunt, it was going to happen. And I started following my dad around in the woods when I was a kid and stuff like that. But my dad wasn't a big bow hunter. He would take a recurve out maybe in October when you get a good windy October day, and he would just kind of try to stalk something in its bed or whatever the case was. But he didn't do a ton of hunting with a bow necessarily. So it was a lot of gun hunting. So I didn't get into bow hunting till much later in life, as an adult. And
yeah.
So I'm always curious, especially at a young age, man, what was it about bow hunting that really kind of tripped your trigger? And then what is it since then that continues to trip your trigger?
No doubt, just getting as close as I can to the animal, just really getting in the zone with that deer. That just in the challenge of it. For me, I just can't describe what I feel when I'm focusing in on, a particular deer, or for that matter, any deer that I can get within, which I like to get within 10 to 15 yards. I've started traditional bow hunting, and I started doing that in 2010. And when I killed my first deer doing that, man, I just, the self-satisfaction I get from that, I can't describe it. And it is truly my passion in life now. And, I just, I plan on continuing doing this, till the day I die.
Right.
So
it's funny. The guys that I know that hunt with traditional equipment all say the same thing. Like, I love getting close, but they've all said to me, and they've, I have a recurve. I play around with it a little bit once in a while, and I have ambitions of someday kind of adding it at least to my repertoire, if not making the transition entirely. I haven't kind of got the nerve to do it yet, just being honest.
Yeah.
But that's the same thing that they all say. They're like, once you do it with traditional equipment, they're like, there's nothing like it, and it's, I was talking to a fellow the other day, and he's been hunting with traditional equipment for the past 2 years. He's killed $5 in 2 years with traditional equipment. His first 2 years hunting traditional. And,
yeah, that's salty.
Yeah, it is salty. and they weren't scrubs either. I mean, they were good deer. And and he's from New Jersey, And what he said was, in part, was that, not a super target rich environment for good deer. And so, maybe every year he didn't have a caliber of buck that he wanted to necessarily chase or target. And so he
Mm-hmm.
was like, I made the change because he's like, using traditional equipment, man, he's like, it makes every deer you kill, buck, doe, 100 inches, 160 inches, it don't matter. He's like, it makes it a trophy. He's like, 'cause
I
it's
can,
not, he's like, it's not easy to do, and so he's like,
yeah,
he's like, part of me did that because it added in that like element of satisfaction of like an accomplishment back to, any successful hunt essentially.
yeah, I can agree with him 100%. That's when I made the swap. I guess it's been about 12 years ago. That partly was the reason why I switched to the area I live in. Guys were killing really good deer with rifles and compounds, and at the time I was hunting and in an area where I, just didn't have a lot of great deer. So, and I killed a lot of deer, and I thought, my old man had a recurve, and I pulled it out of his closet, and I strung it up and practiced a little with it, and decided I wanted to try to kill a deer with it. And when I did, I was like, man, yeah, this is for me right here.
Right.
And you know, I think any traditional guy you talk to will say the same thing that guy did. It's just there is no feeling like it when you get it done with a stick.
Right. Yeah. It's I have buddies on both sides of the fence. But like I have a buddy, some buddies who are all traditional, and they're like, dude, do it. Just make the plunge. You won't regret it. And then I have other buddies going, like, man, this is hard enough. Like, why you want to try to make it harder on yourself?
Yeah. Well, I will say for the most part, if you go traditional, and I've had a lot of buddies go traditional and they go back. If you're in it, if you're specifically in hunting for the size of the antlers or for the trophy, traditional bow hunting is definitely not going to be for you.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough. You're not. There are guys out there that are very consistent every year killing trophy deer with traditional equipment, but it's that's a rarity. It's a struggle, man.
Yeah, I had my one buddy on, and he killed a brown bear in Alaska with a stick bow, which
Yeah, that's awesome.
I was like, man, you got cojones the size of watermelons, bro. I was like, because that's my dream hunt, is to do a brown bear hunt in Alaska with a bow. I was like, but I don't know if I'm trying to get that close. I was like, I might use a compound for that one. It's just,
Yeah,
that's as you said earlier, that there is salty, So, but
yeah.
man, you're from Arkansas. I've never hunted Arkansas. To be honest with you, I've never even been to Arkansas, and so I'm really kind of ignorant when it comes to what deer hunting is even like there. The caliber of deer that you guys have in general, the deer numbers. What is kind of the state of deer hunting there, and what is it like, bow hunting in Arkansas?
So Arkansas it's very diverse. The northwest part of the state is pretty. I call it mountainous. It's pretty hilly, pretty rugged. And then down here where I'm from, the southeast, it's flatland. This is all flatland down here, river bottoms, uh, hardwood timber mixed in with pine in places. Southwest Arkansas is pine country.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty diverse. It just depends on where you're at. Now, like I say, where I hunt, it's mainly river bottom land, and it's hardwoods. It can be, we hunt places, WMAs, that's wide open, the prettiest timber you've ever seen, and then there's areas we hunt that's so thick you can hardly walk through. So it's just it's just kind of all relative to what part of the state you want to hunt in.
Right, but you're in that southeastern part where you have a lot of. It sounds like you have a lot of hard timber and bottoms, is what it sounds like.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, for sure.
And so, I mean, I'm ignorant. So, I mean, is there a good kind of, oak population, as far as like acorns dropping, is there a heavy logging kind of industry to help with like clear cuts to create that diversity of habitat in places? Or, when you do there is? Okay.
Yeah. So basically my hunting style for the area I hunt in, I'm usually 80% of the time I'm finding a feed tree to hunt over.
Okay.
We have a lot of persimmons in the area I hunt, water oaks, nuttalls, and the honey locust. Those are the four primary trees I'm looking for to try to key in on a deer.
So what is, I heard you mention, I think, a Nuttall tree whenever,
Hmm.
when I was watching that video of Roadrunner, I think.
Hmm.
What is a Nuttall? Because I'd never even heard of one of those.
So that is a species of tree in the red oak. It's
Okay.
a red oak.
Okay.
Uh, the Nuttall typically in my part of Arkansas usually starts dropping. The earliest ones you're going to find start dropping are going to be, depending on the weather patterns, are going to be that last week of October, first week of November.
Hmm.
Um, Prior to that, earlier in the year, that's where I'm focusing more on trying to find persimmons, and your water oaks are dropping early October also.
Okay.
Um,
Got it.
so it's kind of relative to the time of year what I'm trying to key in on.
Right. And so it sounds like, 'cause the next thing I wanted to ask you, as you were kind of talking, I was thinking, is there anything? So it sounds like you spend the fall kind of chasing the food to a degree, and I mean that in a good way, where it's like you're trying to stay on top of however the food source is changing. But is there is there an aspect of, terrain or habitat beyond that food that you've found either consistent success around, or that you've had consistent kind of encounters around? Like for me, for example, I know in some of the places that I like to hunt, it like almost every primary scrape that I find, for example, is under a beech tree. Almost all of
Hmm.
them, and so I know, like when I go into an area, if it's new and I'm scouting, or if I know of something that's in the area, I'll go check pockets of beech trees, because I know that that's going to be, if there's going to be good sign laid down, that's likely where it's going to be. And so is there anything like that you've kind of focused in on, that you've kind of been like, man, I pinpoint these areas because by and large, this is where I have my best encounters.
Yeah, absolutely. Just about every mature deer that I've killed, except for a few, are usually on some sort of feed tree
Hmm.
that is next to a very thick area.
Okay.
That's the tree that I'm looking for. I call that my ice cream tree.
Right.
Um, there's a lot of trees in the area depending on where I'm at, and usually that mature deer is going to use that tree tighter to that cover
Mm-hmm.
over the ones that are in an open area. So what I typically do, and a lot of these areas I've hunted for years, so I know there's a couple WMAs that I've hunted since I was literally 12, 13 years old.
Right.
Killed my first squirrel in them, so I know just about every tree out there. I've got them all marked. I go in. That's what I did Sunday. I go in. I find which trees have produced over the years, or for this year, what has produced. I mark those, and then I'll come back later on. It saves me time, not having to go to the other ones that hadn't produced, and I'll kind of start there. But what I do is when I find a tree that's being actively used, I backtrack from there. I try to figure out where I think the deer's bedding. I'm not always certain on that, 'cause it's, down here a deer can bed anywhere.
Right.
I
Right.
don't, down here it's very different from the Midwest. A deer down here can literally bed anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I just try to figure out where I think he's coming from, and that's how I go about with my setups.
Right. So let me ask you this. So, like, say, for example, like the public that you hunt and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Like, what is the size of those? Just, and you don't have to give me specifics. I don't want you to give anything away that was like a specific size, but just give me like a general. Are we talking like consistently kind of couple hundred acres, couple thousand acres, 10,000 acres? Like, what's a size kind of look like?
Yeah, they're all going to be thousands of acres
Okay.
blocks of public. Yeah.
Okay.
And I can kind of, what I was talking about, the tree next to the cover, I can kind of give an example. Back in I guess it'd be 2016, I killed a he was a 116 deer on public land.
Mm-hmm.
Um, with my longbow, and I killed him over a honey locust tree.
Hmm.
Which I'm not sure if you're familiar with those, but they produce a long bean pod, and
Mm-hmm.
for whatever reason, the bucks really like to use those trees in our area down here.
Hmm.
And me and a buddy were actually scouting that piece, and I had pictures of this deer 3/4 of a mile from where I killed him. And when we found, when we walked out of that thicket and we walked up on that tree, I looked at my buddy. I said, I didn't say I would kill that deer, but I told him, I said, I will kill a buck right here.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 weeks later, I killed that deer under that tree.
Like Babe Ruth
Uh,
calling your shot on that one.
I mean, and it's one of those deals. I can honestly say a lot of the deer I've killed, when I find that ice cream spot, it's almost like you just know something's going to happen there.
Yeah. So what is it that kind of tips you off to that, right? Because you could find any other tree in a general area that would be close to that cover potentially, right? But what is it that tells you that it's a specific tree?
Well, it's it's the amount of sign under that tree.
Okay.
It's relative to how far the tightest cover is to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the end, obviously, if I have a tree within 15 to 20 yards to get a good setup on, with also thinking about where that deer's bedding, and if I have the right wind to hunt that spot. So if when I'm doing my scouting and I come across that spot, it doesn't take me long to kind of figure out, yeah, this is this is going to work.
Right.
If I come to a spot and I'm not confident about it, I just don't get that good vibe from it. I don't waste my time there.
Right. And how much sign do you want to see there? In like,
All right, so that's that's also relative to the area you're hunting.
yeah.
Some WMAs we hunt have a lot more, a lot better deer density,
Mm-hmm.
and then some of the bigger pieces with the wide open timber, you don't have to find a whole lot of sign, or I don't have to find a whole lot of sign, to want to hunt that spot. But that's all, that's a broad question, because
Right.
that's going to defer, depending on where I'm at.
Right. No, I totally hear you there, because the spot in the north that I hunt is a big piece of tens of thousands of acres, and it's a lot of wide open. Hit some pockets of thick stuff, and that's kind of this will be the second year I've kind of played. So last year I scouted it a bunch, ran cameras, and I think I hunted it twice, and so this year I have a little better idea. So I postseason scouted it again this year, and it really took me kind of like that first season of scouting to find sign, and then it took me this off season to kind of understand what a good pocket of sign is versus what what little sign is, because I wasn't finding a ton. So in that area, like one or two rubs in an area, that's like a money spot. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
you might walk 2 miles and not see anything. You know what I mean? That's just how that place.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I totally understand what you're saying there, because I know there's good deer there, and and you'd see the pictures of the deer and see the sign that they're laying down, you would never believe it's the same place. You know what I mean? But so when you're setting up, man, you're kind of hunting bedding areas. You're kind of a bedding hunter to a degree, because you want to be in close to that bedding cover, but you want to find that ice cream spot that you kind of described. Now, when you do find that, let's say you're in like October sometime, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you find that spot, do you kind of go in and hunt it aggressively, or do you try to lay back, gather more intel, and then figure out when you're going to strike? Or do you just kind of like, once you find the spot, you're like, I'm going in to kill, and that's all there is to it?
So, I mean, I do hunt areas more than one time, but I always, I never go in with a wind that I don't think is going to be right for that spot. So
Right.
I can, like the deer I was talking about earlier, when I killed him on the third sit, I hung a lock on that tree. I killed him on the third sit, but I only went in with what I thought was the perfect wind for that spot, which ended up being the perfect wind for that spot. But he come in the day I killed him. He come in, it just worked out perfect. Doesn't always happen like that, but it did
Right.
for that time.
Right.
So yeah, I just don't, I won't just hunt it every day until something happens. I always try to line the stars up, and of course, you have to have a little luck on your side also.
Right. Right. Yeah. How much are you like? So when you're looking at the wind and watching the wind, how much are you? I'm trying to figure out how to ask this. How much are you giving the deer the wind versus making sure that you're clean? Because that's always kind of a razor's edge, right? Especially when you got a mature deer, right? Because you almost have to give them the wind and screw yourself to a degree, but have something in your favor to keep you clean enough to get an arrow off. So how thinly are you cutting that?
Yeah. So I've heard guys talk about the killing wind, and I can agree to that to some point. But the way I do it, I'm going to play the wind for which way I think that deer's going to come in. And, I can say I've sat in the tree, and as anybody knows, a mature deer, sometimes especially if I'm hunting over feature, sometimes he's going to want to loop around come in downwind, and of course he's going to bust me. But the ones I've killed, they've come in, kind of at an angle, kind of on that
that
where
off
they're
wind.
just not. That's right, just right on that off wind.
Yeah.
And then of course I've had them. The big deer I killed a couple years ago, he come in just as perfect as he could, upwind from me. So, it's just.
I feel like sometimes it's somewhat dependent too on how comfortable are they in that area. What I mean? Because I've seen, and I've talked to other guys that have seen this too, where it's like they'll get into like a certain spot where that deer just kind of throws caution to the wind. But any other time they would have an encounter with that deer, he's on point. But there's like a spot where it's like he's just so confident of his surroundings that he'll consistently make mistakes in that spot, and almost only that spot alone. Have you seen that too?
You can watch that video from 2020 and see that
Right.
deer just felt comfortable. I mean, that's all there was to it.
Yeah.
And I've never. That's the only deer I've encountered like that. So, I think they're just. I've hunted deer. I hunted a really big deer in 2019 that I saw 3 times. My brother saw once. He was a 170 deer. We were hunting him on public, and we just could not. He whipped our ass. We could not kill him. Could not get in on him. So it's just. I don't think there is a magic potion out there. I think every now and then you have to have a little luck on your side. But I try my best, and I'm in the woods a lot. I just try my best to put myself in where I think I'm going to have a good opportunity.
Right. So what's your favorite time of bow season? Are you an early season? Because some guys I talk to, they really like to pattern, right? And so they have buddies that absolutely hate anything after basically anything after Halloween. They hate it because they kind of lose the ability to kind of pattern the deer, because now it's like maybe that deer's 5 miles away or whatever, and so they really prefer the earlier part of the season, the better for them. Yeah. And I also have other buddies where it's like, man, they love the rut, and that's when they prefer to hunt if they're going to have to push all their chips to the middle. So I'm just curious, Are you more of an early season guy, rut, late season guy? What's your preference?
Honestly, I'm going to say right there in the middle. What I like, what I've noticed over the years is, right before, and I think this is relative to what part of the country, and when they start to rut, but down here there's a window there where the deer really, especially the mature deer, like to move. There's 4 or 5 days they really like to move in daylight hours, and I think maybe they're if they're feeding up to get ready for the rut or whatever it is, but that's when I can really pattern some of these deer to some of these feed trees.
Right.
And I utilize a lot of cameras, and I would say my favorite time is probably that time, but also it's relative to where I'm hunting. There's some places I hunt in funnel areas that that's not hunting over feed trees. That those areas I definitely I want to be there during the prime rut.
Right. So what were, like, if you had to pick like 3 or 4 like a window of dates, what would that 3 or 4 like dates be that you would want to focus on?
Oh man, it's really tough because down here I have to take in consideration the rifle seasons and all that with the pressure in the woods, and
right.
For me the less pressure is definitely going to be early, and a lot of times if I do have a mature deer on camera, I can pattern him mid-October to the first part of November. So if you held me down and told me to pick 3 or 4 days, I'd say right there at the end of October, first part of November.
Yeah, that's interesting because it's one thing I started doing. When did your gun season come in down there?
Ours comes in I believe it comes in the 12th or 13th this year.
Of October?
November.
Oh, of November. Okay. Wow. Mm-hmm. So smack dab, like when things should be.
When things are kicking off, the rifles are cracking.
Yeah. That's that means you got to get her done early. It's like if you got a beat on something, the quicker the better. Because
which usually by then we'll shift gears, and they're WMAs down here that are bow only, so we hunt a lot of those during when rifle season comes in. So that's kind of what I do.
Nice. So when you ended up transitioning to, well, I guess let me ask this. You said 2010 is when you transitioned to traditional archery. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Roughly.
2010.
I'm always curious, and this might be just like selfishly asking this question because I'm trying to gain intel for myself, but like, what was the hardest part of making that transition from compound to a traditional to a stick bow?
I'd say the hardest part is probably your stand setups, because now I look at it totally different. I want, and I'm not a great shot. I want that deer 8 to 12 yards. So I set up for a 12-yard shot, no matter where I'm at. I set up for a 12 to 15-yard shot. And when you when you when you're scouting, or when I'm scouting now, I mean, you pay more attention to detail, because I really have to make sure I'm set up correctly in order to have that deer within 12 to 15 yards. So I think any traditional bow hunter tell you this. I think as you start your journey on the traditional bow hunting, it will make you a better bow hunter. Just because you have to pay attention to everything. There are times when I find really good areas I'd love to hunt, but there is no setup for me. I know, the tree that I need to be set up in may be 40 yards away. Well, I can't make that shot with my recover longbow. So, I just go on past it. Whereas if I was hunting with the compound, that'd be gravy.
Right.
But also, you say the hard part, I think trying to find the confidence with your traditional bow is going to be really tough also.
Right.
I think once a man or woman finds that, once he builds his confidence up, you're ready to roll then.
Right. Yeah. Because I forget if I was listening to something or if I was reading something, and the person that wrote this or spoke it said that making that transition, like what they kind of found to be hard was that, everyone kind of shoots differently. You know what I mean? Like there's no kind of one set way that you have to do this. It's just however it feels comfortable to you that you can be consistent.
Yeah.
And that you're probably going to change how you release 3 or 4 times until you finally find the one that works for you. Like you're going to shoot this way for a little while, they're going to shoot this way for a little while, they're going to shout this way for a little while, and then finally you're going to be like, well, this is the one that works best for me.
And then when you really get going, you're going to get on the internet and you're going to see 1,500 different guys telling you need to do this, you need to do that, and it's going to take you a long time to realize you do what's right for you. Right. And don't worry about anybody else. That's going to be hard for guys too. You know?
Right.
And
yeah, I mean, I think that's even hard. I think that's part of what is hard for some people just in general. Killing a deer that makes them happy versus passing one that would make them happy because they're afraid what someone else might think of it. You know what I mean?
Right. No doubt.
It's a shame,
It really is. It's really a pet peeve of mine. I mean, I'm all for anybody, and no matter what weapon it is, rifle, compound, crossbow, traditional bow, if you're happy with that animal, that it should only matter to you.
Yeah.
As long as you're doing it legal, it should only, if you're happy with whatever you kill, however you kill it, that should be all that matters.
Yeah.
And, for me with traditional, I really enjoy the challenge, and I also enjoy the challenge of trying to sell film and capture it on film. And that just adds to the challenge. And it's cost me a lot of deer over the years, but I'm to the point now that I don't necessarily have to have a deer on the ground. I love being outside, and I really love that challenge and trying to get really close to that deer. And, like I've said before, when it all comes together and you watch that arrow disappear behind the shoulder that you've been practicing for all year and you put in all the time, with your stick bow, there's nothing like it, man.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. A buddy of mine and I, we've talked about this in the past, and we've both always kind of said that, whatever deer you kill, big, small, whatever the case is, there's really only a handful of people that care. Like when you get right down to it, you know what I mean? Like if I kill a good deer or a small deer, like my wife will be excited for me, my daughter, right? And
Yep.
one, maybe two or three of my best buddies, that'll remember it, and we might talk about it, 2 years from now or whatever the case is. But outside of that, 99.9% of the people that either know me or are acquaintances with me are going to forget that I ever even killed that deer.
Yep.
And so
Yep.
I just don't understand why people spend so much time worrying about what people think of what they're doing whenever they don't have any skin in the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's, my favorite thing. I I got a lot of buddies that rag me up. Man, why do you post pictures of your does?
I love it.
With your,
Yeah.
and I'm like, man, I'm proud of that doe. Like
Yeah.
I worked for that doe. I mean, and I love to shoot does. I love to kill deer.
Yeah.
A lot of people think that. I mean, I've been fortunate. I've killed some good deer, but I don't measure my success by inches.
Right.
I measure my success based on the amount of time I put in, the effort I put in, and I don't care who you are. When you pick up a stick bow, you are going to put in that time if you want to be successful, and it feels good when you get something accomplished.
Man, I love what you just said right there. You said measure success by effort. Like that is such a good, like just little nugget that it not only applies to bow hunting. I had a, off the top of hunting, it's like I kind of had a not an epiphany, but I had a realization a couple weeks ago, and it's actually helped me a ton just in like day-to-day life in general, to be honest. Like I started doing jujitsu, right, several months ago, and absolutely love it. It's awesome. It's hard. I get my ass beat every day I go in there. You know what I mean? Because most everyone there is better than me, and have been doing it longer than me, and it makes you appreciate the journey. And it made me kind of stop and think about, like, I was like, man, why do I like to go in there and get my ass kicked every day? You know what I mean? Because I love it. Like I literally get like butterflies before I go into train. Like every time I go into train, I get butterflies. I get excited. And it's the same thing when I get to go bow hunting. I get excited. I get butterflies, And I was trying to figure out like what the connection was. And I was like, when it comes right down to it, I was like, I just like to do really hard things because I can, and I'm able to do that and be okay with someone being better than me or someone shooting a bigger deer than me, because I'm not wrapped up in whether or not I'm achieving success by filling a tag or choking someone out. I'm measuring my success on how much am I challenging myself and how much am I putting into it. And that's my reward,
Right. You're definitely ready for a recurve then, man. No doubt about it.
Right. That's awesome. So maybe I just sold my own self on a recurve there. Oh man. But I mean, to speak to that point, I mean, like you mentioned, like, you're just as proud of that doe as you are a good deer, and that you appreciate that journey and doing hard things and stuff like that, to the point that last year you made your own bow and then went out and killed a good deer with that bow. Can you talk to me about like what inspired you to want to make a bow? Like that seems to me like I don't know that I could do. I'll just be honest. I couldn't do that. I don't think. And that to me just seems like crazy. That to make your own bow, like it's got to be so satisfying to do that.
Oh, it was, man. It was, it's one of the proudest deer that I've ever killed. And it all goes back to the amount of effort and time you put into it. And I'll have to say with that bow, I've got to give a shout out to Mr. Mike Yancey. I went up for a couple of days with him and learned from him, and we built that bow, and just the time we put into it from start to finish. And I mean, there's really no, I'm not a smart enough man to articulate into words what I felt like when I finally got that done. And it, like I said, it wasn't easy. I missed 2 deer last year with that bow, before I finally killed one. Which I'm definitely not the greatest bow maker out there. So, it's man, it was a struggle with that. And I don't know how much more. I'll definitely hunt with it some this year. I don't know how much more of bow building I'll try to do, because that is a time consuming process, and I'd really love to I love to be in the woods and scouting and hunting as much as I can.
Right.
But yeah, man. And I think what made me want to do that is just the challenge. It's just another level, and it's just, I really love the challenge of trying to get it done the hard way, and that's just another step up the ladder. And man, there are guys out there that actually, flint knap their own broadheads, or their own. I mean, there's guys that take it way beyond that. It's amazing what you can do if you really set your mind to it.
Right. I mean, well, I guess I have two questions. The first one is, how long did it actually take to make that bow?
So that bow actually only took 2 days to make.
Holy smokes! Are you serious?
2 days, which now I'm with a man that's a bowyer his whole life. So
Right.
basically, we built this bow together.
Right.
The only time we used we used a table saw to cut the stab up a little bit. Other than that, it was made strictly from hand tools.
Wow.
We 2 days.
What do you use for string on that?
So he actually makes his own string. I'm not sure what actually the material is. But when we finished it, what was really amazing to me, I picked it up and he picked it up and he took it outside and he grabbed 3 arrows out of his bucket and put 3 arrows at 12 yards inside of a softball and said, "Yeah, man, you're ready to go." And I mean, literally, first 3 shots, and of course, first shot I shot and didn't even hit the target.
Right, airmailed it.
Yeah, exactly. So it took a lot of time in the backyard for me to get that thing lined out for me, but yeah, man, that was a cool deal.
Yeah,
last
man.
year.
I think the other thing that's intriguing to me about traditional equipment too is that because it is a little bit more time intensive, like you really start to intimately know your equipment, and I think with the technology of bows just in general nowadays, I feel like people feel like they can spend less and less time with their equipment and they don't truly know the limitations of it. And I think that might be sometimes where some of the discouragement comes too. And it also gives them a slightly false sense of their own capabilities because they have these, bows that are shooting these crazy speeds now and heavy arrows and et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, man, you feel like you could knock down a bison from 150 yards, when the reality is that your shooting circle, your own capability really suggests you should probably not take a shot beyond 20, even with a compound, you know what I mean? So that's the one thing that I've always kind of noticed from trad guys is that they have a way more intimate knowledge of the capability of their equipment and what the limitations are.
Yeah. And I know most guys, and for sure myself, I've got 2 bows that I'm, they feel like they're an extension of my body, and I'll have them bows till the day I die.
Right.
And I know, compound guys, they're buying a new bow every single year,
right.
The latest and greatest. And, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's all what you want to do. But, the traditional deal, it's more about, my favorite thing, people ask me, well, how far was that deer? I'm like, well, he was too far. The whole day, it's not about how far, it's about how close you can get.
Right.
That's it's just a different ball game, and it's not for everybody. But if I really feel like anybody that tries it, is going to fall in love with it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm probably going to be calling you at some point for some pointers here in the next probably like 12 months. Once I get through this season, it might have to. I'm not going to lie. I've been perusing some traditional bow sites, kind of looking at them, and I'm kind of intrigued with a longbow versus a recurve. What's your opinion?
Oh man, that's totally personal preference.
Yeah.
I shoot both. I've got a recurve I really like, and then I've got a longbow that I really like, and that's totally personal preference.
Okay.
And I'll be the first to tell you, I'm the last guy you want to talk to about shooting form and shooting style. I do my own thing. It works for me, and it's probably not going to work for you. I mean, I'll never be the guy to try to explain to somebody how they should shoot because, a professional shooter could watch me and say, man, this guy's he's not doing it right, but it works for me. So
Right. Well, speaking of working for you, man, I want to jump in and talk about this roadrunner deer. I watched the video that you self filmed, which was killer, by the way. Like to catch all that footage, man, the number of encounters you had with that deer was completely unreal.
yeah, that deer took 3 to 4 years off my life for sure.
Nice. Yeah. For
Man,
sure.
that that was a rough month. It really was. That was a stressful month.
Like the first encounter, and I want to walk through stepwise, like how this all kind of came about. But I just got to say, like that first encounter you had, it seemed like that deer was there for forever. And I'm sitting there watching you, and I'm like, dude, I would have come unglued by now. Like, you know what I mean? Like you're watching this just world class animal.
Yeah, so that actually was. I think you're actually talking about the second time I saw him, because the first time I saw him, I didn't get him on camera.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's right, that's right. You're right.
Yeah, the first time I actually laid eyes on him, coyote actually run him out of the thicket.
Yeah,
and run him by me, and I really got lucky because that was the same day I pulled the camera card that I had a picture of him,
mm-hmm.
and I ended up. It was almost a half mile from where I pulled that card is where I sat that evening, and it was just by the grace of God that I saw him. And when I saw him that evening, that let me know I was in the general area.
Right.
And of course, I slung cameras everywhere in that area the next few days. And then, yeah, the second time I saw him is when, yeah, man, I watched him for a while and I filmed him, and he was actually coming straight in. Thought I was going to kill him at that moment. And I think that's when the hog come in and spooked him off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to back up for a second. So when did you first learn of this deer? Like when did you know this deer actually existed? Not necessarily hunting him, but like you knew, like you had a confirmation that there's a giant deer that you're aware of that you can actually hunt.
Yeah. So that I mean, I may not be certain on my dates. It was either the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, something like that of October.
Mm-hmm.
It may have been, I'm not sure, it's 2 years ago, but you can probably watch the video and it'll tell you. But I want to say it's the 1st or 2nd of October when I pulled that camera card, and I actually had a picture of him. I think it was like the 28th or 29th of September. Okay. So that's when I first knew about him.
So you didn't have any prior, like the year prior or anything like that? So there was not like...
Well, so actually, and I didn't know all this till, way after the fact that I killed him. I had 2 pictures of him the previous year. He was and I'm about 95% certain it was him. He was probably 140-inch 10-point.
Okay.
And these pictures were in February. And then, like I say, when I first learned of him, it was actually that first part of October. And the day, and it was about, I won't forget, it was probably 10 or 11 o'clock when I checked that camera.
Mm-hmm.
That evening is when I hunted, and I saw the coyote running by me that evening. So I actually saw him the same evening I pulled the card and knew he was there.
Okay. So all right. So this deer it may be the same deer from February, but he made a big jump. So it in the real time, you didn't recognize that. It was just a hammer deer.
No. Like I say, I didn't even know about the other pictures till way after the fact.
Right.
Looking back.
Right. So you get this trail camera picture of this deer, right? And then you said you went on like a trail camera hanging frenzy to try to locate where he was at. So once you learned of this deer, what was your, aside from kind of hanging cameras? Well, actually, let's start there. What types of places were you focusing on to hang cameras? Like, did you?
So I saw him that evening, and I was in a little pin oak flat. I'd actually gone in that evening. I told my brother, I said, I'm just going to go in there and try to shoot a doe this evening. And then in the morning, I was going to spend all morning scouting. I was just going to make a giant circle, basically like I like to do, backtrack from the persimmon tree I had a picture of him on. Mm-hmm. I was just going to backtrack, try to find the nearest cover and maybe some more feed trees in that area to sling cameras on. And that's basically what I did, except I saw him that evening, and I immediately the next day I went everywhere in that area slinging cameras on every feed tree I could find.
Right.
And that kind of helped me put a pattern to him.
Okay. So at that point, you got your cameras up, like you haven't got any other pictures of him yet, right? So you got your cameras hung. What is kind of like your gut feeling as far as like what you're kind of scheming, if you will, right? Because like you don't see a giant deer like that hang cameras and go like, I'm just gonna wait to see some pictures. Like I know
Right.
like you're going like, all right, I'm gonna make a plan because maybe he's a ghost and he may never show up on camera again, but I got to figure out how to hunt him even if I don't have camera intel.
Yeah. So initially I thought the deer left the country, because when this coyote was chasing him, he wasn't just, he just didn't spook him. He was running this deer, and I've never seen anything like that. So I initially thought this deer I would never see him again.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually put a camera up that evening, that night when I climbed down. I put a camera up that night on that pin oak tree I was set up on. I come in there the next morning. I got up like I planned. I went around everywhere, probably within 400 to 500 acres. That area covered it. I had every camera I had at the time and put out. And then I went back to that tree. I was going to hunt that tree again that evening. I checked that camera card, and that bastard was in there at 1:30. I missed him by 45 minutes.
Oh man!
It's so that he never left. Wherever that cow was running to, he got in. He never left the area.
Right.
Now there was and then I guess kind of fast forward to the second time where you're kind of watching him. I see him, the hog runs off, and then a few days went by, and I think we get down to the 13th of October.
Mm-hmm.
I actually he comes in. I moved probably 200 yards from where I first saw him, and he comes in right at dark under the pin oak I'm set up on, and I put air in.
Yeah,
I make a bad shot on him.
So when you made that 200-yard move, right? Because a lot of guys would have just went right back to that same tree. You know what I mean? And been like, man, he's going to come through here again. What was it that was telling you I need to move 200 yards this direction?
One, it was the cover, like I was kind of explaining earlier. It was tighter to the cover, and also it was a tree that I had put a camera up on, and he was hitting that tree more than any other one.
Okay,
and that's at that point in time, that's what he was doing, that area there. And I believe I think it was the first sit in that spot on that 13th when I shot him. I should have killed him that day.
Right.
Made a bad shot, and I can't describe to you what I felt like.
Oh man, my gut dropped when I saw that when I was watching the video. I was like
and initially, you can tell by my reaction, I thought I actually heard the deer go down. I definitely wasn't 100% sure I got him. I mean, you can see that. And I ended up slipping out of there, and we got back to the truck. My brother was actually with me that evening. We had spread out because he was trying to kill him. We were just trying to get this deer killed before rifle season come in.
Right.
And I told him, I said, man, I shot him, and I don't know. We got to pop the card in the computer to look. So we did, and it actually sounds like, if you listen, you hear, hindsight's 2020, but he ended up running through a blowdown is what you hear on that video, where I thought I said, I thought I heard him go down. So kind of speed things up a little bit. We give him, I think we gave him 3 or 4 hours at night. And I said, all right, let's go in there, at least walk to the spot of there, see if we can see any blood or anything. And we get in there, and my brother and I both, we've shot enough deer to know if it's good or bad.
Right.
And we immediately, when we get out there and I don't find anything at the spot of the shot, and we walk 40, 50 yards where he went, nothing at all, I knew it was not good.
Right.
So we get out of there.
Yeah.
And I said, we'll come back in the morning. And a deer, I mean, I've never once in my life had an opportunity to hunt a deer that size. I already knew what I was going to do. I had a really good friend in Louisiana with a awesome blood dog. So I got him on the phone, and he was willing to come the next morning to try to trail this deer. And we get in there the next morning, and it wasn't 10 minutes. That dog trailed the deer and found my arrow. And when I laid eyes on that arrow, I knew that this deer was not hurt at all.
Right. So,
and we immediately got out of there.
yeah, for sure. So I'm curious, man, at this point, what are you thinking? Like, you just flung an arrow at the biggest deer you've ever seen, hit him, but he's not mortally wounded, right? Like, like my pessimistic mind would have went right to like, man, you got to be kidding me! Like, there's no way this deer, he's out of the county at this point. He got a coyote blew him out of there. Then I stuck an arrow in him poorly, and he's got to be like, what is going on in this area? I'm not coming back this season.
Yeah, I can't say what I was saying, what I was feeling. Like it was bad,
right?
Because I knew what kind of deer he was. And here I am. I just wounded the biggest deer I've ever seen in my life.
Right.
So, but with that being said, when I because I was worried that it was going to be one of those deals where it was a marginal shot, and maybe we find him, maybe we don't. But I will say, when we found that arrow, I actually felt a little better because I knew he was alive. I knew he was not hurt at all. Right. I had 2 to 3 inches of penetration, no blood. We blew it up time after time after time on the TV to look at it, and I knew that deer was going to make it. So me and Mr. Brian and his dog, we get out of there. I carry him back to his truck. He leaves. I go right back in that area, and I grab every camera I have, and I go right back in that area, and I put cameras out everywhere. I mean, everywhere. And this is how wild this is. And then there's a camera on a tree, on the tree my brother was hunting, and it was actually an early dropping nuttall. This is 13th of October. Normally your nuttalls aren't dropping until the last part of October.
Right.
So when I'm leaving, it's almost dark. I'm leaving, getting ready to go back to work the next day. I pull that card out of that camera, and I go to the house. And before I take a shower that night, I pop that card into the computer just to see what's on it. And I'll be damned if that deer is not on camera. I forget what it was. I mean, it was 8 or 9 hours after I shot him.
Yeah. It wasn't even a day.
Yeah. I mean, you can see him. He's licking his wound. And I'm like, dude, you gotta be kidding me.
Right.
So, I go right back into, I've got a chance.
Right.
And
so at this point, right, like to your point, you just said it, like you're like, okay, I'm not completely out of the game, right? You had that encounter. So you're making a move. I think it was the 31st of October. I think that's when it was. You were making a move to a particular tree. So you shot him at one spot, right? And then you see him on a camera at another spot on another tree. But when you made that move, you went to a different spot. So what was the thinking behind where you ended up setting up the 31st?
So there's time in between there that I actually, I cut, man, the video could have been 3 hours long. I cut a lot of it. So there's a time frame in there where after all this happened with the wounding, and I've got muzzleloader season coming in 3 or 4 days.
Right.
And I swallowed a huge chunk of pride. I knew the chances of me ever having an opportunity to do like this again were slim to none. I actually borrowed a muzzleloader for 3 days, go in there and hunt that deer. I was going to do anything I could to kill that deer. And I never saw him. So muzzleloader gets by, nobody killed him.
And you would have heard that caliber deer.
Oh yeah. You'd have heard. So I knew he was fine, and I didn't have any pictures of him during that window. And then we get on down to the end of October. I had a camera on 2 different nuttalls that had started dropping, and I had 1 or 2 pictures of him on one of those trees. And that's where I started hunting at the end of October, and I saw him on the 30th, I believe. I believe that's the evening I got some footage of him, and he just skirted me just out of my range. And I think that's the fourth time, and I'm like, I mean, is this like how many lives does this deer have?
I know, right?
But that evening, I saw him. I saw where he come from that evening, and I was closer. I was actually north of where I thought that deer was bedding that evening. So when I saw him come from the north, I knew that he was actually bedding further north than what I thought. So it really helped me. I saw him that evening, and then I hunted that exact. I went in there early the next day, hunted that tree the next morning, and I saw him that morning about 8 or 9 o'clock. I don't think I got footage of him that morning, but he was headed north,
Headed back to bed.
Headed back to bed. So that's when I was like, all right, I know what you're doing now. So I made a move midday that morning, and I eased out there to where I had saw him. And there was a tree there, and I had walked by that tree before earlier in the year, which it wasn't dropping, and they were just absolutely mauling that tree. And when I walked up to it, and it's right on the edge of some thick cover, I knew. I mean, it was just like you walked into the light. I knew I was going to have opportunity at him right there.
So how far was that from where you were set up previously?
I believe it was about 80 to 90 yards.
That's crazy.
So.
Man. It's so funny, man, because it's like it's that, and sometimes even less, that you're just outside the game. You know what I mean? It's like, and getting that visual was everything. Was actually seeing what he was doing.
Yeah, me seeing him that morning headed north to bed, that's what got him killed.
Right.
Because if I wouldn't have, I might have not ever walked out there.
Right, because why would you at that point, right? Because you're seeing him. Right,
yeah, because I'm getting him on that. I'm getting him right there where I was hunting. So that pretty much killed him. And I mean, it was one of them deals. I mean, I pretty much called it. I was like, I'll see him right here, and and then, man, the stars just lined up. I think it was one of them deals. It was just obviously it was meant to be. I've never even heard of a story like that. I mean, it was unreal.
So we're at November 1st, right? D-Day, if you will.
Yeah.
And walk me through, like, what was your access into this spot? Because, like, for me at least, like, I mean, to your point, man, you saw him go back to bed. You know where this joker's staying. You know what tree he's going to want to come to. Like, I would have been on pins and needles knowing that, like, man, I would have been puckered up so tight making coal, man. You know what I mean? Like, as far as like I got to make sure my access is perfect. You know what I mean? Like, just like going through my checklist. Like, how did you what was your access like, and what was your kind of thought process as you're kind of going into that day?
Well, so like I say, the stars lined up. This was on the 30th that morning. I saw him. I needed a northeast wind. That's what I had that morning. Well, when I made that midday move, it couldn't have worked out any more perfect. We're talking, let's say it's Halloween now, the 31st. And the wind was actually going to switch that evening. So I knew I had actually climbed up in the tree that I ended up killing him out of, but I knew I could not hunt that evening. I knew I was going to have to get out of there, which I had to anyway. It was, that's Halloween night, and I promised my girlfriend we'd carry her and her daughter out trick or treating. I made that promise, so I was like, we're gonna go do that. So we did, and I told her, I said the next morning, it was just after the full moon, and I wanted to be in the tree. I actually wanted to be in the tree by 9:30, 10 o'clock that next morning, and I was late. I was a little late. I got in there at mile 11 or something like that. And, it's one of the deals I tell everybody. I mean, there's no doubt about it. It was just meant to be. I climbed the tree, got my camera set up, did my little intro, and I don't think it was 15 or 20 minutes. And I looked up, and there he was. 12:30 in the evening, 8 steps, walks right under me. And if you saw it, you saw it. I mean, there's no, I can't explain, and I've caught a lot of flack for my reaction.
Dude, whatever. I don't even.
I mean,
those people can go kick rocks.
yeah, I mean, it's, and that's what I tell people. I can't explain that feeling when it all come together. But I mean, the stress I went under, like you see it explode out of my body, like it was just.
I thought you were
It
going to
was
fall out of the
unreal,
tree,
man. It was
man.
unreal.
I was worried for
Oh,
your
I
health.
definitely, yeah, I definitely thought I was too. Trust me.
Yeah, I mean, anyone who's giving you flack for that, man, can kick rocks, dude. It's like that's a once in a lifetime,
Yeah, that
a once in a
and it's
lifetime experience. And like,
not just the size of the deer, but just the whole story. That'll never happen again for me ever.
yeah.
That'll never happen again.
6 encounters on a world class animal like that, to where it's like you play the yin and yang with him, you go the yo-yo, like the whole deal, man. I mean, it's like, yeah. I mean, anyone who doesn't just lose their marbles after something like that, like I question whether they got a pulse.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
But I was thankful for the opportunity, and I mean, I obviously that whole story is that's just a whole different deal. But I mean, I get excited with any animal I'm after. I mean, I killed a really good deer last year. I videoed all it. I'm in the process of editing it all now to try to get it out in a couple of weeks. And
Nice.
I mean, man, I just get excited, and that's just me. And I know that's not for everybody, but I'm not going to change who I am for anybody.
Yeah.
I love to hunt. It excites me. And man, it's my passion. And
man, I will take your reaction all day long over the ones you see on other videos. It's like, oh, I just killed him. Want to thank all my NASCAR sponsors. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
I want to say it's like the Ricky Bobby, like if you don't chew Big Red, you know what I mean? Like that's like some of it is what it feels like, man. So I appreciated just like the honest like reaction, man. Like that's what it's all about, is getting pumped up like that, dude. So yeah, dude, I couldn't believe it, man. I think it was 6 encounters, right? Is what it was.
Yeah, killed him on the 6th time I saw him. Yeah,
it's just bananas.
And
I'm sorry,
and that was, well, I was gonna say, that's obviously that's the only deer I've ever had that kind of encounters with that many times. But yeah, man, it was unreal. And to be honest with you, I'm glad it was over.
I bet, man. I bet for what he ended up scoring. Like, he ended up being a state record, wasn't he?
With the longbow.
With the longbow.
Yeah, with the longbow. He I just had him officially scored for Pope and Young back in February. He grossed on the Pope and Young scale. He grossed 183 and some change, and netted 178 and some change.
Nice.
And then on the Buckmaster scale, he was 186 and some change, and I forget what he netted on that. I don't keep up too much with the score deal or whatever, but
nice. Yeah, that's a beast, man. Great story. I mean, for people out there that are listening, if you haven't seen the video, like I'll give you a chance to kind of plug your YouTube channel and stuff like that, because I want to make sure people see it, because it's a killer hunt. It's an amazing deer, and just the whole process, dude, was awesome. It was time well spent for me sitting in my basement watching the video. So,
well, I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, you bet, dude. But I have one last question for you, man, that I always kind of like to end with. It's always kind of a brain twister if you're game for it. You ready?
Sure.
All right. So you are the coach of a basketball team, not a basketball team, of a hunting team. And you have 3 buck tags to fill on a piece of public land somewhere, wherever, doesn't matter where. And you have to pick 3 guys to fill those tags, and your life depends on it. They can be dead, they can be alive, they can be people you know, people you don't know. It doesn't matter. Who are those 3 people that you're picking with your hide on the line?
Number 1 would be my brother, no doubt. Nice. Josh. Man, that's a tough one.
It's a stumper. That's why I always like to save it for last, man. Like,
yeah, no doubt my brother, number 1. I'd probably have to go with my buddy Drew Bounds. He's an absolute killer anywhere he goes.
Nice.
And public land. Yeah, definitely a stumper, man.
Yeah. If you only got 2, if you're like, hey, these guys are the only 2 I need, then hey, we can roll with that too.
No, if I had them 2 guys with me, and myself, I'm feeling pretty damn good.
There you go, coach, GM, and player. That's how you're going to roll.
Yeah, no doubt.
Nice, man. Well, hey, before I let you get going, brother, let people know where they can find out more about you, where they can watch that video, and then where they can follow along with whatever you got going on this fall.
Yeah. So YouTube, just my name, Johnathan Moreland. And then of course I'm on Instagram, my name, and then Facebook. So
nice. Awesome.
And then I'll have I'm currently in the process now of I've got quite a few videos that'll be out on YouTube this year, and 3 or 4 hunts, and gonna have some informational stuff out there too this year. So just kind of getting started with it. So there'll be some videos pop up here pretty soon.
Awesome, man. Well, good luck to you this season, brother. I appreciate you coming on, and let's make sure we stay in touch, and I'll let you know whenever when the traditional experience starts on my end.
Heck yeah, man. Good luck. Appreciate it, Clint.
All right, folks, that is a wrap for today's show. I'd like to thank all of you for listening. If you haven't yet, please head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating, and be sure to subscribe to the podcast. And while you're at it, head over to YouTube and give us a sub there as well. I'd be super appreciative if you do those couple things for me. And before I shut this thing down, I need to give a big shout out to our partners who continue to help us make this podcast possible. Tethered, Spartan Forge, Exodus, and Skull Brew Coffee Company. And until next time, we'll see y'all.